All right, we'll kick things off right away with Joe Iacano.
Hey, Coach Monken, good morning and welcome back from the winter training and on into spring practice. First question for you. What are you most excited about seeing this spring? There's a lot of players returning, but obviously some slots that have to be filled as there is every year.
I'm just excited to be back out on the field. There's a lot of guys that played on the scout team this past fall that will really get a chance to kind of compete for jobs this spring. And it's hard to do that sometimes as a freshman. And to see those guys get out there and have a chance to compete and really find out who might be able to help us in that class is pretty exciting. And then to I guess just the excitement of starting a new season for me. I always look forward to that. And it was a good year this past year, but certainly some things to build on and some accomplishments that we would have liked to have attained and didn't get. And so this is the first opportunity this week as a team to practice and start to prepare for the 2025 season.
And speaking of what you just mentioned with the historic 2024 season, I know you always say every year's a brand new team, and that's totally true. How do you get the mindset of these guys really focused on the fact that this is a brand new season, they're 0-0, and nothing that they did in 2024 or didn't do has any impact on the 2025 season?
I think it's just a matter of the veteran players, the mature guys, understanding what needs to be done in order for us to have another good season. And there's enough guys here that went through some challenging seasons. We started out both the 2022 and 23 seasons, and we were really struggling at the beginning of the year, and we managed to find a way in both of those to win some games at the very end to balance it out a little bit. But those are some hard, frustrating times, and hopefully our veteran players realize how important it is for us to have a good spring and to prepare so that we can start off in the season with some success and get off to a good start like we did last year. And it certainly made all the difference in the world in terms of the final record.
Thanks, Coach Monken.
Thank you.
Seth Mendelson.
Good morning, Coach. Good to see you again, and good luck this year.
Thank you.
Specifically, the offense is losing three of their starting offensive linemen, and of course, the quarterback situation. I don't think you have to tell us who you have slotted in there because you probably don't know yet. But are you confident about filling these roles as we go? With talented guys going into the season, going into practice, and going into the season.
Certainly losing starters is a part of graduation and the whole process of college football. And now it's not in I guess the rest of college football isn't it? It isn't just graduation that's depleting rosters and forcing changes. The transfer portal and all those things that are going on are changing lineups and rosters around the country. But for us, losing those three guys is certainly that's certainly a big blow to us. Those three guys, along with Brady and Paulo, were a big part of our success last year. All five of them started every game, and it's not common, probably anywhere in football, but certainly not here. But we're able to keep those guys healthy, and they meant a lot to the program. That offensive line, just to our team and the success that we had, they were a huge part of that. So there's plenty of guys for us to train and develop. Hopefully we can train and develop those guys to become really good players like the ones that are vacating those spots. And we won't know until we get into the games and have a chance to see those guys play. But you're talking about three seniors who had played a lot of football, and so having that game experience and the development over the years that they were here, that helped them play as well as they did. Excuse me, as well as they did last year. In terms of the quarterback, that's it's hard to replace the guy that scored 32 touchdowns and led our team so well, but I'm confident in the guys that we've got that are coming up through the ranks. We've got a rising senior, a rising junior, and a rising sophomore that I think all three will compete for the job and have a chance to be the starting quarterback. And I'm confident that one of those guys, and hopefully all three of them, will be prepared and ready to be able to play if they're called on. So we'll just see. We'll see how that shakes out during the spring and preseason camp. And we don't have to make any of those decisions right now. It's really just putting the work in and getting those guys prepared to compete so that we can find out who might be those guys to replace the important starters we lost.
Okay, my final question is, you talked about the transfer portal for other colleges. Of course, we knew we lost Kanye. Anybody else transfer out of the program?
He's the only one that we lost at the end of the fall. Last year at the end of the spring, we had some guys that after we went through the spring and they kind of realized where they were on the depth chart and I think trying to sort through if they were going to have a chance to be a starter on our team. And I respect a guy that wants to be a starter on a college football team and contribute and play on the field. That means he cares about football and really likes the game and wants to play. And I respect that. But sometimes guys get through, a year or two in the program, or in our case, they go through spring ball and they kind of see where they're at on the depth chart, and they realize that their chances to start and make a contribution on a college football team are probably somewhere else. And so we had some guys last year at the end of the spring that transferred and went to some other colleges. And, I don't know if that'll happen again this year, but it may. But coming out of the fall, Kanye was the only starter, or the guy, of the guys that really played and contributed that went into the transfer portal.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
John Turan.
Good morning, Coach.
Hi, John.
You had a great season last year. How do you think that influenced potential recruits in coming to West Point?
Well, we had a good year. Lost the only game that we got to win around here, so that was a bit of a disappointment there at the end of the season. And so as I said, early on in this interview, that just some accomplishments we would have liked to we'd like to have seen go in our favor, and they didn't. So that gives us some motivation. But I think success certainly helps in bringing people into the program, to procure the kinds of players and people that we need to help us continue to succeed. Hopefully those people are, young men that are motivated by success and want to accomplish things as part of a team, and where they see success, and they see that opportunity, hopefully that attracts them to Army football. And I think certainly winning makes a lot of things easier, and not that anything's easy at West Point or recruiting is easy at West Point. It's not. It's a challenge, and it always will be. But I think having success certainly, I think that is a benefit to us when we're out there on the recruiting trails.
Losing some faces on the field is not the only thing that we will see for this year. You have some new assistant coaches. Could you tell us a little bit about their background and the process of gaining them for the program?
Yeah, sure. So we had some coaches move on to some head coaching opportunities and coordinator opportunities, which is great. And we certainly celebrate that and wish all those guys well. On the defensive line position, we hired Alan Smith. Alan he's a Coach Woody disciple, has coached with Coach Woody in the past, been at several other colleges, and really excited about having him here with us, especially because he's got a history with Coach Woody and speaks the same language and knows the defense, and he's able to step in and really it's been very seamless. Chandler Burks, who is going to coach our running backs. He's got a history with Coach Worley, actually played quarterback in the option offensive system at Kennesaw State. Like Bryson Daly, set a FBS record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. Chandler set the FCS record for rushing touchdowns as a quarterback, and then was the offensive coordinator most recently at Kennesaw State, running a very similar offense to us. And so I think that's been a good match for us. And most recently we hired Seth Hessness, who has a background with North Dakota State, and I guess the running offenses that you look at throughout college football and teams that are really committed to that and do it very well. His affiliation with them was certainly an attraction for us, and his background. And so he's going to coach the tight ends, and I think he's going to be a good match for us as well. Bring some fresh ideas and some thoughts from some very successful programs that I think will help us grow.
Thank you, Coach. I hope you have a very healthy season.
I hope so too.
Ken McMillan.
Hi, Jeff. Good to see you back.
Thank you, Ken.
Jeff, a general question. To you, what is the value of spring ball?
Development, for sure. As I mentioned, we've got a lot of young guys that played on the scout team a year ago. And when they come into the program, a lot of our guys that are freshmen right now went through our prep school program. So they were able to go through an entire season running our defense and our offense. Others were direct admits that came straight from high school to West Point. And all of those guys, whether they came from the prep school or came in direct, went through an install of the offense and defense and special teams in preseason camp. But as we transitioned out of preseason camp into preparation for the first game, a lot of those guys went to the scout team, and we would have some developmental periods throughout the season, which we did a couple of times a week, which kind of kept those guys fresh. But practicing the schemes and the intense fundamentals that we put the starters and the guys that travel through, it's different for a guy that's on the scout team. So having an opportunity for those guys to go through meetings and walkthroughs and practices and all those things to relearn the offense and the defense, and then to give them an opportunity to compete and find out if they're competitive and physical and tough. Those are all things that I think are very valuable in spring practice. So fundamentals are a huge part of our practices, even during the season, but particularly in the spring, to really become better fundamentally: blocking, tackling, destroying tackles, taking care of the ball, taking the ball away, kicking, throwing, all the skills that go into this game. I think getting a lot of work at those is really valuable in the spring as well.
Jeff, can you give us any update on injuries or people you plan on sitting out here in the spring ball?
We had some postseason, some procedures that were done, and we got some guys that are going to sit out of the spring to get healthy. There's some guys that were on the scout team, some guys that were players that played a lot of snaps for us. Andon Thomas is going to sit out the spring after a procedure. He's probably he and Cody Harris Miller, two guys that played a good bit, they're sitting out this spring. Other guys are developmental guys, but we hope that they'll get healthy and be able to go through preseason camp. And some of those guys we're expecting to have help us in the spring, or excuse me, in the fall. So there's a few names there, but that really, I think, for the most part, fairly healthy for the number of guys that we have. We're in fairly good condition right now going into spring.
Jeff, do you plan on, I think every spring you guys experiment, change positions, do a little testing. Can you drop any names on us of people who might be making switches?
No, there haven't been a lot of changes. Nothing in terms of you know, guys that have played a lot that are all of a sudden going to be playing a different position. Really, the guys that played a year ago and were on our travel squad are all playing the same positions that they did in the fall. Uh, there may likely be some changes as we go through the spring, particularly with our freshman class, the guys that are going into their sophomore year, as we get into practices and we get into scrimmages, having a chance to evaluate them and finding that another position may suit them more appropriately for their skill set and their bodies. And a lot of these guys grow; they really develop their freshman year, and they kind of grow out of the position they're playing, maybe in growing into another position. So nothing big to report right now, but maybe as the spring goes along, there might be some guys that we move from one side of the ball to the other, or just to other positions within that same unit.
Jeff, is it important to find an identity of your new team now, or is August really the time?
I think that happens as soon as the seniors leave the locker room, that we start to figure out who the leaders are and uh, the personality and temperament of the team. And all teams are different. I think every year I've experienced that, and hopefully this team is going to have guys that'll provide positive leadership and be assertive and aggressive as leaders to push our team as far as we can go. And we'll find that out more and more as we go through this spring and this summer and preseason camp and the season. And I think leaders continue to develop, and hopefully the guys on this team that are kind of out there in front, they'll continue to develop.
We talk offense all the time about, what you may lose, but how about defense? How are you feeling in general about what you got coming back defensively?
I'm excited about so many of the guys that we've got coming back on defense. Mentioned Anna Thomas and Cody Harris Miller, who I think are both really good players, tough guys. We'll get both of those guys back, along with Caleb Fortner, Elo Mendozi. And those are three of the four linebackers, if you include the nickel position. We obviously lost Chance Keith, but we'll find somebody to fill in there. We're really going to miss Maxi Domenico and Kyle Lewis, both captains for us. Those guys played a lot and were key players, so we're going to miss them. We'll miss the leadership of Cody Winokur as much as we miss anybody. He was really a dynamic leader for our team. But we've got a lot of guys coming back. Casey Larkin coming back, and Mays and Platt coming back in the secondary. I'm excited about that. Jack Latour, and as I said, Cody Harris Miller, and we got some guys up front. We rotate a lot of guys on the defensive line, so I think there'll be some guys that'll battle and find their way into the lineup and into the rotation. I'm excited about Eric Ford, and he's right now, at least going into spring, a backup to Elo Mendozi, but he just has showed continuous improvement and promise, and looking forward to seeing him play this spring. So, there's some guys coming back that I think we've got a good nucleus of players that will help us be competitive on defense.
And then let me wrap up with offense here. You lose a lot of yardage, a lot of production. Does it ever keep you awake at night, Jeff? And just can you give us a little more information on the quarterback situation as far as experience goes? Not as much as you had the comfort the last year or so.
No, not at all. Certainly Dwayne Coleman, having an opportunity to play in some games, started and played the Air Force game. Cale Helms has very little experience, and Ethan Washington has, no experience. But I think all three of those guys are good players, talented enough, and I think all three of those players will compete for the starting job. And I wouldn't say that, you know, we would name a starter right now. Dwayne's at the top of the depth chart, obviously because he's got the most experience and has played some. But I think those other two guys are going to battle, and that's healthy. It's great for the position. It's great for those guys to have others at that spot that'll push them to be their best. And if they're competitive and they care, then that'll help them improve. We lost Bryson, who meant a lot to our team. We lost Kanye, who was 1,000-yard rusher. That's a big part of the offense. But it's just college football, and other guys will step up. I'm confident that they will, and I'm excited about seeing Hayden Reed playing in the backfield for us, and Jake Rendina, Carson Smith. There's some guys in the program, Jarrell Dixon. See all those guys play and compete, and see, what they'll become and what will become as an offense with them in the lineup.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any other last questions out there?
Coach, I have one more question. It's Seth. The NCAA is, I don't know if they approved it or not, but they're talking about going up to 125 scholarships from 85 for football. How do you think that impacts West Point?
I don't know that it does. I think it's great for the game. I hope they do. There's been talk of limiting the rosters to 105, and there's been a lot of discussions from one conference to the other about limiting the scholarships. And I think the more opportunities we can give young men and young women to be a part of this game, I think it's great. I'm in favor of it. And I don't know that an increased number of scholarships for other schools is really going to affect our recruiting. And we kind of are in our pool, and we swim in a different pool than the Power 5 schools, and really many of the FBS schools. And so I think there's a pool of players for us, and what we've got to do is be competitive in recruiting against the other academies and the FCS schools. And that's kind of really where we end up and focus. Not that we wouldn't want to sign a bunch of 5-star guys, but that's just historically not been realistic for an academy, and that for a lot of reasons. But that doesn't mean we can't have success, obviously, and that we can't get good players and great people in the program.
Thank you, Coach.
Hey, Jeff, can I get you? I see Texas has canceled its, spring game as a couple other programs. What do you think about a spring game? How important is it to West Point, and your thoughts?
It's great for us. I love for our guys to have a chance to compete, and we'll have guys in the program that'll play in the spring game, and really that's their only opportunity to play in a competitive game contest like situation, maybe till the next spring. Not everybody on our team is going to be on the travel squad. It's just the way it is. And so it's great to see those guys get in that situation. And it's remarkable sometimes how well a guy plays when he gets into a game like situation like that. And we've had, over the course of my tenure here, some guys in the spring game that it wasn't until that spring game that you really found out, what, that guy makes some plays when the game's on the line. And so it's been valuable. It's valuable for us. I think it's a great reward for our team at the end of the spring to have that, and to be in Mikey Stadium and to be able to play and compete. And I think it's fantastic. But I can see why other schools are kind of drifting away from that. And perhaps, there's been a lot of discussion about spring football going away and becoming more like the NFL model of the OTAs or the organized team activities that happen late in the spring or early in the summertime. And but time will tell. We'll see what happens with the rules and where that goes. But I think there's a lot of support for that in the game amongst coaches, and perhaps we'll see a change, which would be a major change. It'd be really different from what we've done for decades in terms of spring ball, but we'll see. But for right now, spring ball is really valuable, and the spring game is certainly a valuable reward for our players and for our program.
Do you favor the current format versus the OTAs?
Oh, I think regardless of whether it's in March and April or if it's in May and June, that having an opportunity to work with our team and do football related activities is important. So I don't know that I feel strongly about one or the other. I think the one thing here is that OTAs in late May and early June, we really have to be conscious of the window for us to be able to complete those. That's the time where our guys are, they're finishing up their term end exams and they're headed out to Camp Buckner or other places for summer military training. And, hopefully we'll have some input and some say if it does go to OTAs, that we've got a window for our guys to be able to take part in that. It certainly would be a disadvantage, I think, if everybody else could do OTAs at the end of May and June and we couldn't because of our summer military training obligations.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great afternoon, guys. Beat Navy.
Thanks, Coach.